"Please don't fire Mommy," the little girl whispered to the CEO, and in that single trembling sentence, an entire room froze. No one knew that Christmas, that cold winter morning, would change all of their lives forever. Snow fell gently over New York City, blanketing the gray streets in a fragile white calm that seemed to mock Emma Collins's chaos. Inside a small, dimly lit apartment, she sat at the edge of her bed with a calculator in hand, her eyes scanning a stack of unpaid bills. The red letters, "Past due," glared back at her like silent accusations. The heater rattled weakly in the corner, barely fighting the winter cold. From the next room came the soft hum of a little voice singing a Christmas song. "Jingle bells, jingle bells." Emma smiled faintly. That voice was her reason to keep breathing, her 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Emma stood and peeked into the tiny bedroom where Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, drawing something on an old notebook. The girl's cheeks were rosy, her eyes bright with innocence. "Mommy, I'm writing a letter to Santa," she said proudly, holding up a page covered in crooked handwriting and glitter. Emma's heart squeezed. "Oh really? What are you asking for this year?" Lily grinned, "Maybe a pink dress. And some warm boots. But I think I'll ask Santa to make you smile more." Emma's throat tightened. She forced a small laugh and said, "That's a very big wish, sweetheart." But inside, she was breaking. At work, rumors had been swirling for weeks about massive layoffs. Ridgeway Industries, once one of the biggest corporations in the city, was struggling after a tough financial year. Departments were being cut left and right. Emma, who worked as a secretary in the marketing division, had done everything she could to prove her worth, staying late, taking on extra work, never complaining. Still, she could feel the walls closing in. Her manager, Karen, had been avoiding eye contact for days. And today, when the department meeting was announced, everyone knew what it meant. Emma walked into the conference room clutching her notepad, pretending to be composed. The HR director cleared his throat, reading off a list of names in a cold, practiced tone. One after another, people's faces fell. And then, Emma Collins. Her heart sank. For a moment, everything went silent except the pounding in her ears. She swallowed hard and nodded, trying to stay professional. But when she walked out of the room, the tears came fast, unstoppable. Hours later, she stood at the bus stop in the snow, holding Lily's hand. The city lights blurred through her tears. Lily looked up at her and asked softly, "Mommy, are you okay?" Emma forced a trembling smile. "Of course, baby, Mommy's just tired." When they got home, Emma heated a can of soup for dinner. Lily sat close beside her, small hands wrapped around the warm bowl. "Mommy," she whispered, "if Santa can give toys to everyone, maybe he can give you your job back too?" Emma blinked away tears. "Maybe he can, sweetheart. Maybe he can." Outside, the snow kept falling, soft, silent, and endless, as if the heavens themselves were listening to a child's hope. 2 days before Christmas, Ridgeway Industries glimmered with gold and silver decorations. The company's annual Christmas Eve charity event was the one night of the year when the cold corporate walls tried to look warm. The ballroom was filled with laughter, music, and people wearing forced smiles. But for Emma Collins, it wasn't a celebration, it was survival. Even after being laid off, she'd come to volunteer as a cleaner just to earn a small paycheck. Her pride wanted her to stay home, but her daughter's empty toy shelf pushed her to face the same company that had just taken away her only source of income. Lily held her hand tightly as they entered through the side door. The little girl's pink coat was slightly faded, her boots a size too small, but her eyes sparkled as she looked at the Christmas tree that stood in the center of the hall, a towering masterpiece covered in silver ribbons, golden lights, and hundreds of ornaments. "Mommy, look. It's beautiful," she whispered. Emma smiled softly. "Yes, it is. Just stay close to me, okay?" Across the room, Alexander Ridgeway, the CEO, stood tall in a charcoal suit, surrounded by executives and investors. At 35, he was powerful, intimidating, and famously distant. His face carried no trace of warmth, only years of pressure, loss, and loneliness buried under layers of success. He had been raised in wealth but not love. His mother died when he was 10. His father, the original founder of Ridgeway Industries, turned him into a machine, emotionless, driven, and cold. To him, Christmas was just another day of business. As the orchestra played softly, Alexander's assistant handed him a list of donations for the company's charity drive. He skimmed through it mechanically, his expression blank, until a small voice nearby caught his attention. A little girl was standing by the tree, carefully placing a folded letter under one of the lower branches. Her pink mitten slipped off, revealing small fingers trembling from the cold. Alexander stepped closer, his curiosity piqued. "Hey there," he said gently, his deep voice softening. "What are you doing?" The girl turned, startled, clutching her letter. "It's for Santa," she said shyly. "But it's kind of secret." He smiled faintly, a rare sight. "I won't tell. May I see it?" She hesitated, then handed it to him. The paper was slightly crumpled, written in uneven letters in glitter pen. Alexander read silently. "Dear Santa, please don't fire my mommy. She works very hard and cries when she thinks I'm sleeping. I don't want toys this year. I just want her to smile again. Love, Lily." He froze. The words blurred for a moment. He blinked, swallowing hard, something in his chest tightening painfully. He looked down at the little girl, who smiled innocently. "Your mommy works here?" he asked quietly. She nodded proudly. "She cleans now. But she used to sit at a big desk." Alexander's gaze followed her tiny finger, landing on Emma, who was across the hall, wiping down tables with a rag, her hair tied back, exhaustion visible even from a distance. For the first time in years, the CEO saw something other than numbers and reports. He saw a woman who refused to give up. He saw himself, a child once pleading silently for someone to care. He took a slow breath, folded the letter carefully, and walked across the hall. When Emma looked up and saw him approaching, her hands froze. Panic rushed through her veins. "Mr. Ridgway, I'm sorry if we're in the way, I'll move right away." He shook his head. "No, Miss Collins. I just wanted to ask." He glanced at Lily, then back at her. "Was that your daughter's letter I found under the tree?" Emma's face turned pale. "Oh my God, Mr. Ridgway, I'm so sorry. She doesn't understand how things work. Please don't be upset." Before she could finish, Lily tugged gently on his coat sleeve and whispered, her voice trembling but pure. "Please don't fire Mommy." The entire room fell silent. The music stopped. Even the clinking glasses froze in mid-air. Alexander looked down at the little girl, her eyes wide, glistening with hope, then up at Emma, who stood frozen, tears spilling down her cheeks. He knelt slowly, lowering himself to Lily's level. His voice, usually sharp as steel, was now soft as snow. "Your mommy isn't fired," he said quietly. "In fact, I think she just got promoted." Emma gasped, covering her mouth in disbelief. And for the first time in his life, Alexander Ridgway smiled, not the polite, practiced kind, but the kind that came from a heart remembering what it meant to feel again. Across the room, applause began softly, first from a few employees, then spreading until the whole hall echoed with it. Lily's face lit up, her eyes shimmering with joy. She threw her arms around her mother's waist. And as Emma held her daughter close, she whispered through tears, "Thank you. Thank you so much." But Alexander just smiled faintly, still kneeling beside them. "Don't thank me," he said quietly. "Thank her. She reminded me what Christmas is supposed to mean." Morning sunlight spilled across the city skyline, touching the frosted windows of Ridgway Industries with a golden glow. The world was quiet, the streets covered in white, the air filled with the hush that only Christmas morning could bring. Emma Collins stood outside the company building again, this time with trembling hands clutching a letter that had summoned her back. Her heart raced as she looked up at the tall glass tower. The same doors that had closed on her dreams now opened as if the world itself had shifted overnight. When she entered the marble lobby, the receptionist smiled, a real, warm smile. "Good morning, Miss Collins. Mr. Ridgway is expecting you." Emma blinked in surprise. "Expecting me?" She took the elevator to the top floor. Each soft chime of the elevator felt like her heartbeat echoing through time. Just 2 days ago, she had been sweeping the floors of this very building. And now, she was walking toward the office of the man who had changed everything. The doors slid open with a gentle ding. Inside, the CEO's office was bathed in soft light from the massive windows overlooking the city. A Christmas wreath hung above the door, simple, elegant, and somehow hopeful. Alexander Ridgway stood by the window, his suit replaced by a gray sweater and rolled sleeves. He turned when she entered, a rare smile forming on his usually stoic face. "Good morning, Emma," he said warmly. "Merry Christmas." She hesitated. Merry Christmas, sir. I wasn't sure why you called me back." He gestured for her to sit. "I've been going through the company records since the event. I realized you've been doing the work of 3 people for over a year, quietly, efficiently, and without complaint." He paused, looking thoughtful. "I also realized that I've been running this company with my head, not my heart." Emma's eyes dropped to her hands. "I just tried to do my best, sir. I didn't expect anything." "I know you didn't," Alexander said softly. "And that's exactly why you deserve everything." He slid an envelope across the desk. "Effective immediately, I'd like you to return, not as a secretary, but as my executive assistant. With a full benefits package, salary increase, and housing support." Emma stared at the letter in disbelief. "Sir, I can't accept this. I'm just..." He interrupted gently. "You're not just anything, Ms. Collins. You're proof that compassion still exists in this company. And I think it's time Ridgeway Industries remembered what that means." Her eyes filled with tears. She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't even know how to." "Just say yes," he said with a quiet laugh. "And maybe have lunch with me and Lily today. I think Santa owes her a proper thank you too." That afternoon, the company's annual charity dinner began, but this time, it felt different. The ballroom that once echoed with formality now buzzed with warmth. Employees who had feared layoffs were now donating to help struggling families. Children ran around the decorated tree, laughing, their cheeks glowing with joy. Emma arrived wearing a simple red dress. Lily ran beside her, carrying a small handmade card. When they entered the hall, a hush fell over the room, not out of awkwardness, but admiration. Alexander approached, smiling warmly. "There's my favorite little writer," he said, kneeling to Lily's height. "Did you know your letter changed everything?" Lily giggled. "Really?" He nodded. "Because of you, hundreds of families are getting help this Christmas. We started something new, the Lily Hope Fund." Emma's eyes widened. "You didn't have to do that." "I did," he said softly. "Because your daughter reminded me what this season means. I lost my mother on Christmas Eve when I was young. Since then, I stopped believing in magic. In kindness. But you and Lily showed me that it never really goes away, it just waits for someone brave enough to bring it back." Emma's eyes shimmered as tears slipped down her cheeks. "Mr. Ridgeway. I don't know what to say." He smiled gently. "Say you'll stop calling me Mr. Ridgeway." She laughed through tears. "All right, Alexander." Later that evening, as the snow fell softly outside, the 3 of them stood near the Christmas tree, its lights twinkling like tiny stars. Lily opened her small handmade card and handed it to Alexander. He read it aloud, voice thick with emotion. "Dear Santa, thank you for listening. You didn't just save Mommy's job, you gave us a new friend." The room erupted in quiet laughter and applause. Alexander bent down and hugged Lily tightly, whispering, "Merry Christmas, little one." Then he looked up at Emma, their eyes meeting, a silent exchange of gratitude, respect, and something deeper, something new. For the first time, neither of them felt alone. Outside, the city sparkled. Inside, hearts healed. And as the night ended, Lily cuddled against her mother, whispering softly, "See, Mommy? I told you Santa listens." Emma smiled through her tears, looking toward Alexander across the room, a man who'd once forgotten how to feel, now laughing with children by the firelight. "Yes, sweetheart," she whispered, kissing her forehead. "He really does. Sometimes, miracles don't come from the North Pole. Sometimes, they come from the heart of someone who finally remembers how to love."